with, no, let's go with, if we look here, right, so these guys who are who've got this API, this vessel API, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, they let you, how can I do that? Right, can you see this?
Yes.
You can see my screen. Okay,
Yeah.
so if we look at Mongo over here, right, they've got this object which is called static data,
Yeah.
and they've got these fields under it, and then they've got dimensions, okay? And then they've got this thing here which is validated. And that relates back to this guy, because these are the guys who we take all our information in from.
Yep.
And so you can think of that, that's the vessel ID. And you know how we had this static data, this is the unvalidated, and then you get the validated. So you've got, this is your unvalidated, the static, right?
Yeah.
Static data, he has a name, and then we get the validated name, and we get the validated IMO, and we get the validated call sign, and we get the validated ship type, and we get the validated dimensions, right? Which is basically, this is the static, and then we get the, as that says static data call sign,
Yeah.
and then over here it says, static data validated call sign. Okay, right? So static data validated call sign,
Yeah.
static data call sign. All right, so static data call sign and then static data validated call sign, right? So you have the unvalidated and you've got your validated fields over on the right. And why I wanted to speak to you is in regard to the object. So you do it, and this says here, here's an example query including the validated vessel data, okay? But if we look into here, these guys say they use this, which is static data, and then they use this one, which is static data validated. So if we talk about objects, I think that this static data here should be static data dot name dot IMO, so it's a static data name and a static data IMO and a static data MSI. And then this should really be, instead of saying validated, this is what I don't know if it's important or not, it says validated, but you go, also when running API calls, there is a filtered on vessels, blah, 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 the static data validated data. So this says static data validated, right? And that's what we use up here, is this static data validated. So to separate it from, we're using the same thing as then. And so because we're talking about the structure of what's going to be in here, the objects under each bit. So do you think it should remain just as validated like this, right? Or should it be this static data validated, right? Because this is what we've also got up here. So there's inconsistencies in their APIs in how they label the fields, and it's inconsistent with the objects in our database. And because we're going to reload the vessels up, I just want to get, I want to make sure that the objects that we're grouping information under, under static data or whatever it is, that we're using the right hierarchy, so to speak. So, so my question, it sort of comes back to this, right? So we've got, there's thousands of IDs, well, there's a whole lot of IDs, right, across the system, and they use IDs for all sorts of things, right?
Yeah.
And so this here being, this is the ID of the vessel being the vessel ID, and we know it's in the vessel file. Should this have an upper level that's a vessel, and then there's a vessel ID, and then there's the static data section, and then this is static data dimensions, and then we've got validated and then we've got validated
Yeah.
dimensions. So that's how their system works with static
Yeah. I
and
mean,
validated, right? And then they have another little group which is called characteristics, right? Which is this little thing which is down here. This is their grouping, right?
yeah.
And then there's this other one which when we start live, we're going to get access to this extended one, right? Which is just bear with me a second. And the reason why I'm showing it to you is right. So static. Here we go. And this is the extended, right? And so what we can think, so these are all fields that are going to get filled, right?
Yeah.
All of these fields are going to get filled against the vessel ID, yeah?
Yeah.
When we start live, subject to, not every vessel has extended fields, only vessels that they've been able to, put against it, right? But once we start live, all those fields, all these extra ones, right?
Yeah.
These objects here are going to get filled from information, right? From this vessel API, because at the moment, when we did a trial, we were only able to take the static and the validated. We weren't able to access the extended because that's something you have to pay for, right? So
Yes.
So what I'm saying, on top of this information here, which is the static, and you've got your static and your dimensions here, and then you've got your validated dimensions, right? And you've got your characteristics as well. And then on top, this is coming from them, is what I'm talking about. And then we're going to get these other, what is this? Another 100 fields, right? Okay.
Yeah.
And so if you think about it, and they're going to be like so if we're structuring this vessel table, right, which we're talking about, which is in here, now we know that all these fields are going to come, right? Okay. All these extra ones here. So if we're reloading the vessels into the port, into Mongo, and we've got this information filled out on these fields, so to speak, but we know that we're going to get all these other fields. Should we include that within, that can sit? And so what I'm trying to do is to get the structure, the hierarchy of how it is. We can include these other 100 fields under here. So we have one vessel ID. So under the ID, right, under this one vessel ID, we've got the static, and then we've got the validated, and we've got the characteristics, and then we've got the extended characteristics. And then we can add these into this schema, you know what I mean, so to speak, and then those values will only get filled later on because they're going to come up. So I'm just thinking, should we, even though we don't have these values at the moment, right?
Yeah.
Should we add all of these and pop them in here?
Yeah, definitely.
Right. Otherwise, you're going to have two tables, and you might as well put it in one table. That's what I'm trying to get to. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, we can put it like that way, and that's actually a better way to do, honestly. Like the static data and static data not validated, all this stuff should be in the nested structure. And let's say if we don't have the data, then it will just be written as null.
Be empty.
Yeah, empty.
Yeah.
Null, yeah.
No problem.
No
But
problem.
I mean, this is it. And so this allows us to have all the fields which we know are going to get filled.
Yep.
Okay. And it allows it all to be under one ID, and we don't have to have different tables for this static kind of information where we're working with a combination of validated and unvalidated fields, with duplicate values. And so when we get back to these kind of, so I'll do that. So if we were going to load up this vessel today, so I have a question here around here too. So let's say within this section here, right, under this section here, we can easily move the order of what they appear under here. Is that correct? So if I wanted to put the name there, or I wanted to put the call sign up here, we can move. We have the layout.
Yeah.
Within here, right? Under each object, we can organise each field under each object as in how we want to view it, right? Is that correct or not?
Yeah, definitely it's correct.
So if I look at something like this, the way that these guys have structured it, right?
Yeah.
So we know this is static data, which is this thing here, which is here, right?
Yeah.
This stuff over here. You know how we talked about this validity, this thing of the MMSI? So if we said that's the static, and that's that static data, and then that's static data dimensions, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if we need to highlight that as an object. See these dimensions. So see how it says here static data, and it says dimensions, but we've got static data, and then we've got static dimensions here, and then we have the same value,
yeah,
but validated over here. So this doesn't look obvious, or is this obvious to you as a developer that this is static data, that the dimensions is part of the object's static data? And so you can see the difference between, see how this is called dimensions, and that's called dimensions. And the only way you know the difference is because that's up here validated and that says static data. And so for hierarchy, I'm just wondering if it's these guys label it like this over here, right? Which is really inefficient, to be honest, right? Where they go, see how they use that static data and they use validated, which is the same as what we've got in the Mongo. But if you actually look at their documentation, right?
Yeah.
And it uses like a dot, it's just better. Because we're using two sets of values. We know this here is all unvalidated, and we know that same IMO here. Right? There's no, so where can you see that? So here, so that's that IMO is part of this static data, and then this one here is part of the validated. These are the validated fields, they're the unvalidated fields. So I'm just trying to ask you in regard to, should we be changing this object name to make it more, so it's static data dot validated, or do we, rather than just validated so we know that each of these fields here.
No, actually static data dot validated is the corrected way and good reference way to do it,
This is, mate, we're dealing with hundreds of thousands of ships and we're querying heaps of stuff, right? And so that's exactly why that's exactly the point. So where I have done this here in my vessel table, where I've used static data name and static data call sign and static data IMO, and I've referred to their documentation to that, and then I've also used the static data validator, right? So in theory, it would be much clearer and easier if we said, so if that was static data dot, and then it would be AI, and this, because these are all properties of this, of that static data, right? Of that static data object. And so yeah, I'm just trying to look at a way. I'm happy to leave it like this, but it's probably clearer if we, I'm trying to work out, do we distinguish how much we need to distinguish between these object names, because it's a big part of what we do, that there's, it's got this, we've got this, on this side it's unvalidated, and then on the right-hand side it's validated, right? So we have unvalidated and validated of the same field name. So, and this is based on their documentation here.
Yeah.
I mean, it says it's static data and it says validated here, but you look at here next to this thing, what you read next to it, it says static data validated, right? So, and they talk about things that is this as static data. So I'm just wanted to seek your opinion as to what you think if it makes a difference, right? Does it make a difference? Or do you have any input as to, should we have to follow what the API says, or can we change this to say static data dot validated, so to speak?
I mean, what I feel, we should go with the structure of this API, which
Yes.
they are saying, because it's more well documented and more better way to do it. I personally feel like that way,
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
So, okay, that's fine, and so we can go with that. So what happens here? So, now.
Yeah.
Where this is so all right, so this is how it is, right? They've got the static and then they've got the validated, right? And see how they've put this here, this valid MMSI at the bottom, okay?
Yeah.
Right, this one that I've highlighted. Now that there is up here, it's in this static section, and in a perfect world, what that means is that value there, right, it relates to this number here.
Which one? I can't see.
This saying that it's valid, that's true, right? The valid MMSI, that relates to this value up here, right?
Yeah.
So if I wanted to rearrange how all these different objects that all relate to this vessel ID, because we're going to have these 200 fields, right? And we're going to add these extended fields and stuff. And for this to have more value or to be more meaningful, this number, the fact that it's true, is relating to this value up here. So, here within Mongo, we can rearrange. So, like if I wanted to put this one, I can't stick it within the static data section, but I can actually stick it here in between static data and dimensions.
Okay.
Do you understand what I'm saying there? We can't edit the object, but this here just sits down here and it says, okay, it's a true value or a false value, but it's sitting here under this validated section, but it actually relates to this value up here, right? So can we add that to the object of the API, or do we keep it separate to the object that comes back on the API, or can we move it in between the objects?
Actually, we can either move in between also and add it also. Both are workable. So it's just according to you, which one you think is better, we can go ahead with that.
So if this is the output of the API, right? Okay.
Yeah.
And we've said, all right, that's great. We want to validate that. And what we've done is we've gone, we want to validate that this key value here, up here, is the correct, is a valid number. Okay. And so either can we put that field, so within our schema here because you're going to pull it in the API, it's going to come into some bucket or something or whatever it is. And this here, I'm talking about how we lay everything out. So when you look at it and you can go, and we've got 200 fields related to a single ID, that we've got all these things, they're all correctly separated by the object, you know? And when we have a couple of rules when we're things like this, so either I don't know what is more easier or simple, but you know, I know you're saying to me we can reorganize these any way we want inside the object if we wanted to. And you're saying to me we could even add this to an object here, like as this field under this static data, we could update that to have our version of it, to have validator inside in there. Or I could leave it where it is, or I can actually put it up here in between these two objects. Yeah? Is that what you just said?
Yeah.
Yep. And so the fact that it comes in like this, so if I wanted to put my field, you know what I mean? Does it get in the way of stuff when we're pulling things in?
Yeah.
Calling on the API, it's going to muck around with it. It's going to mess it up a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So the fact that it sits outside of this section of this static data section, okay, all right. And so because I can see what they've done in here as well, because this also is part of this, and I don't know why that's been separated. I think that's just the way the guys did it. So, and if we load this in here, and we've got all these fields which are going to go in here, so this is going to be an object here which might be validated v2, and I've got things like, so what I'm uncertain about is that we've got all these fields which are coming from them, and plus we've got a set of fields ourselves.
Yeah.
And we've got to put the object for our grouped fields, and it was coming down to how much flexibility do we have for better naming, for better protocols and stuff.
So you are
see how this?
Yeah. Actually, we have full flexibility to update anything between data between fields.
Say that again.
We have full flexibility to update in fields in MongoDB. Yeah.
So, okay, and if I said to you, right, this is the vessel table, we have to reload, this is one of the vessels. So we've got two vessel tables, right? This one's got 262, 276, right? And then we've got this other one here, which is this fishing table. It's got 400,000 in it, okay?
Yeah.
And this one, things like this is, look at, this is, all this stuff has got really, see all this stuff?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We've got lots of really junky names and...
Yeah.
I'm thinking, you know, and so there's things, so if you were trying to, you know how we said that we wanted, our aim is to be able to match the identity of the vessel's identity, right? Which is contained on the message, and we're matching against these kinds of fields here, okay? You know, and so many of these names here, so if I went like, if I'm going to go like this, right? This is the ship's name, percentage, 91%, right? You know, this is just how crazy it is, yeah? And so what this is saying here, we've got and you have to think of every single row as a unique vessel ID. So what we're trying to match against, so if I'm just going to go 003,
Yeah.
let me just do that. So, yeah, see, look at this, right? So see all this kind of stuff. So you're never going to match against the vessel's name like this unless we trim some of this data, trim the name, right? We use all fields to match against, but we wouldn't be able to match against this field unless we trimmed some of this data. We could say, okay, we might even say that's all one ship, and if we put another field here, static data name trimmed, right? We might call this vessel. You know what I mean? And we could say, well, all those vessel IDs here, all those.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever that is one vessel, right?
Yep.
We would say, well, based on name, for instance, right? That appears like it's one vessel, okay? And what's he doing? I know that he's a fishing vessel because this is how much percentage his net is full, okay? That's how I identify them. But if we said that was one, because what we want to do is we want to actually kick all of these vessel IDs out, right? Because they would be a fishing ship, because we want to kick all them out. And so there's a lot of these things like around the name which it affects the matching ability across when we're trying to match the message to the vessel ID. And I'm suggesting that unless we created an additional file, right, an additional column with a trimmed name, we can do it later at any point in time.
Yeah.
But I think there's a value in having a trimmed name column because so you'll be matching against one which could have all this garbage next to it, or you could be matching against a trimmed name. Okay, we don't want to be changing anything else. But what do you think about that?
No, I totally agree.
Right. So okay, all right. And so it's just like one of these other fields as well, where we have our extra fields, just like we're going to add all these extra ones down here, these extended fields.
Yeah.
So I've been looking at stuff because I'm looking at this here. And so here, these guys have not, see, like, these guys here. So, for instance, something like this is one of our, you know how these are all validated fields, right? So for here, this should be an object, and the object should be IMO.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So this is what I'm trying to do now. So these guys haven't set up that scheme that this is an object, and this object should be. So that's what I've been looking at today. I've been going, oh, okay, what's the objects that we should have under this vessel? I'm trying to confirm all, all the fields that we have, and so we can, so we've got them there, even if they're empty, which we can then load in against, right? And does it make a difference to you as to how these fields are laid out here in this document compared to how they're laid out here within Mongo? So it means like is it going to come into Mongo grouped exactly like this, or do we make the template and then send all the values into the template?
The first one is fine.
Yeah, okay, but that means if I have it like this, right, then that means I've got to add these other, see these other 100 fields, all these ones, right? All these extended fields. That means I would have to add them into all across the top here. Or can you just copy and paste it into it, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Is that how we do it?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Okay. Okay, that's fine. You've answered my questions, how we're going to do it. So I'm going to put together a document which has all the fields that relate to the vessel ID.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm going to use it as the API outputs that they've got. And then I've got other objects which relate to fields that I'm have created. And I think you find when you did the API audit that that's a whole lot of these characteristic fields.
Yep.
Which was where was that audit? Where was that audit? It's going to be.
हाँ बोलो नोशी. हाँ बोलो. You called me earlier.
This one. Is there a file there for that? Vessel characteristics.
Let me see. Which file you are speaking about?
Oh, there it is. Okay.
हाँ बोलो नोशी क्या बोल रही हो? Funny where? Then.
No, there was a file that had. Okay, I haven't got it in. Maybe it's somewhere else. All right, no problem. So what I'm going to do, just give me a little bit of time, and I'm going to message you in a little while. I'm going to try and put together the document. It's going to have all the fields in it, okay, that relate to the vessel ID, and then I'm going to give you the two files to. So here, right, we've got these two files, and the only reason why we've got these two files is just one was 400,000, and one's another 270. But does it make it, and the ones which 400,000, ideally we want to kick that out, where the other ones we want to basically identify. But is it easier for you, so every vessel ID has one big document that contains all the fields with all the breakdowns of all the fields, and all the vessels are in one file, so we would have 670,000 in one vessel file document, or we can keep it as two files at the moment. What sounds easier for you?
I'm actually, honestly, both are easier for me, so we can go with anything which you feel comfortable.
But to handle it, you've got to be, because you're going to be calling on this, you're going to be calling all the different values on the vessel at the same time. So whether it's in one file or two files, does that make a difference to you? Whether all the documents are attached to one file or two files, even though they're the same ID, they're all a vessel. It makes no difference.
No, honestly, they're not that much at coding level.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, let me finalise this. Let me spend it, and then I'm gonna give you these two files, and then we're gonna go and do that. So I'm gonna buzz you a little bit later. Okay.
Sure. Should I read